Here I am at the Acropolis in Greece, reporting to you, observing all of the turmoil that's coming about in Greece as a result of the financial problems they're having. I'm in the middle of reprobates and dangerous types. I believe that's one right there. Anyway, I'm doing this video for you on resource problems, and I hope you enjoy it. Bye. Well, I want to do a little video online introduction to Chapter 2. Just point out the things that you probably should watch out for when you read it. There are really three big issues. The first has to do with cost, the difference between opportunity costs and sunk costs. The second is production possibilities, and it has assumptions. There are lessons and applications. The real lessons and applications are the sort of choices you have to make about limits, costs, efficiency, law of increasing cost, economic growth, and present versus future consumption. Then we can use it to talk about guns and butter and so forth and apply it. The third big one is comparative advantage, and this is the basis on which, it's the principle on which trade takes place in the world. So you can imagine how much trade takes place and how significant that is in the world. And the reason trade takes place, the reason people exchange with each other, is because it makes them wealthier, provided it's voluntary and informed. But obviously there's an issue with information that was covered a bit in the last chapter. Information is scarce. There's no such thing as perfect information. And then the question of how much information should one get before you make a decision. Well, you compare the marginal cost of additional information to the marginal benefits. That's it. But when people make trades, if it's voluntary and informed, it's not a zero-sum game. It's a positive-sum game. Both can be better off after the exchange compared to before. Both can be wealthier. And the demonstration of the wealth is in this comparative advantage chapter, where we identify who has a comparative advantage, and we distinguish a comparative advantage from absolute advantage. Comparative advantage means being able to do something at lower cost, whereas absolute advantage means being able to do something with fewer resources or in less time. And in the real world, it's not the resources that matter, it's the cost of the resources. It's not the time, it's the opportunity cost of the time that matters. So to explain this, we put you in a 2x2 world where there are only two persons or two countries, and they can only do two productive activities. So we try and figure out what are the costs to each person of doing each activity, and then see who has the lowest costs of doing it. And when we've done that, we decide who has a comparative advantage. And then from that, we can show that both will be better off if they specialize and trade with each other. And it turns out that you cannot produce outside your production possibilities frontier, but you can consume outside of it. Everybody consumes outside of their personal production possibilities frontiers because they're able to specialize and trade with other people. I live much, much, much better because I'm able to specialize and trade with other people. I consume outside my production possibilities frontier, but it's only because of trade. I cannot produce outside of it. In this section, I normally cover markets, but your book doesn't, and unless I do a video on it, I think you're just not going to have many good resources. The last bit has to do with the what, how, and for whom questions. Every society has to decide what to produce, how to produce it, and for whom. Who's going to get it? So the what to produce is the allocation of resource questions. Are we going to allocate more resources to the production of butter or more resources to the production of guns? How to produce is the technology question. Are we going to use lots of capital and not much labor, or vice versa? Are we going to use robot-powered, computer-guided, laser welding machines, or are we going to get welders, people with welding machines to do it? That's the technology of production question. And then finally, the for whom question says, okay, we've produced it. Who's getting it now? Who will receive the goods? So that's the what, how, and for whom question, and then the chapter ends with a discussion of a pure price system, that's a pure capitalist system, versus a pure command system, which is sort of a very socialist system. There are no pure price systems or market systems or capitalist systems, and there are no pure centrally planned systems these days either, except perhaps for North Korea, and now even Cuba is moving off that dime. So all are mixed at this point, mixed in various ways, but it's helpful to understand the extremes, the market system and the command systems, and what the characteristics are. In the opportunity cost, in the cost section, of course, you have to be able to distinguish between which are opportunity costs and which are sunk costs. That's very important. Production possibilities, there's a beautifully flashed out little explanation of the different choices that people have and what the cost of it is. Slope and cost, there's a beautifully flashed out little example here of the relationship. Why is this? It really explains why this graph is outward bowed. It's because of the law of increasing cost, but this thing explains it. And you can click on any section and then has a very complete explanation. Oh, look, that's weird. Anyway, then exchange and wealth. They talk a little bit about barter. That's nice. Comparative advantage. There's an illustration here that will set you up in a, whoops, there it is, in a 2x2 world with good old Anne and Dan. Also beautifully flashed out, I might add. And it simply goes through the process of figuring out what is the cost to each person of producing each item. So that's right here under illustration, comparative advantage. What, how, and for whom? I wish I could spend a whole day on this one, the whole issue of prices and how they coordinate the activity of billions of people around the world and how they make me behave like Mother Teresa even though I'm not. Finally, other economic systems, and I hope you enjoy the chapter. It's an interesting one. It's kind of a foundation one. Thank you very much.